I got mugged inside a Filipino supermarket. And if that doesn't tell you that you never really know what's going to happen, I don't know what does. My whole career has really been about not knowing what is going to happen and carrying on anyway. But there are two timelines that you can do that on. There is the short term, right? We're going to move through a short-term period of uncertainty. And I can tell you how to do that. And then there is the long view, which is none of us know what is going to happen. And what I can tell you is you sort of have to make peace with that from your perspective. And it really helps if you do. Let me illustrate this with the Filipino story. There was a typhoon. Typhoon Haiyan. There was a reason that once upon a time they called me Little Miss Natural Disaster at the BBC. I had a lot of nicknames over the years. I actually had a hoodie that said Little Miss Natural Disaster on it. And I got a call saying, you got to go. Time to go. This is going to be big. And after the fact, as we like to do. But off I went. I was going to get a flight out of Singapore to Manila. I was going to load up with supplies, and as soon as I could get in, I was going to take said supplies, and we were going to start a movement in. This is how we operated. We had put a cameraman and a correspondent in already on the first flight we could get them in on. Now we were going to support them, and I was going to go in. So I go to the supermarket, I'm loading up, I'm on top of things. I have my purse in the cart with my passport, all the money. I have not slept, sleep deprivation, story of my life. And I literally looked away for a second to grab some dehydrated so-and-so. Somebody grabs it. Because I'm a little disorganized, I had a credit card in my front pocket. Thank God. So I managed to pay for all these supplies. I called one of our local team. They sent a taxi to get me. I get back to the hotel. I had the incredible luck of having the amazing Rika Hazan as a colleague in Singapore who knew everybody, everyone, absolutely everyone in the Philippines. And he somehow got permission for me to fly without a passport, without any form of identification. They were just going to take a photocopy and Rico's word for it that I was who I said I was. It also helped that at that point we were going to charter a very small private plane. This is not a Kardashian experience, I promise you, to get all of these supplies in. Because this was bad and it was going to be a long deployment. Anywho, off we go. We get in. One of the first things you do if you want to make it work is you find great people to work with. And we found an amazing guy, Troy. A couple of amazing people, but Troy was our main man. He spoke amazing English, as many Filipinos do. He had a vehicle that still had gas. He was willing to drive us around, and he was going to help us cover this story and organize ourselves. The first night, we were finishing and then putting up tents in the dark. This is see in the dark in a bad way, because our tent putting up skills in the rain, extremely tired, were not amazing. One of the cameramen, who is an absolute legend, is also an inveterate snorer. And man, could you hear him. Sadly, darkness does not block out sound. And so we were trying to get a couple of hours sleep before dawn, but wowza, he was keeping us all up. If you're listening to this, Joe, I'm sorry. I'm going to tell beautiful stories about you in another video. But the next day, we are going to go out, do some filming, and I had been tasked by the in charge, who is the person who's running that deployment. He'd also said, look, go and find somewhere for us to live that is not in a tent where Joe is snoring and keeping us all up. Again, apologies, Joe. So, because it takes a lot out of you to work in those conditions, and we needed to keep everyone healthy. You've got to keep the foundation strong if you're going to keep everyone working. So I went out for a walk, and I found a semi-functional, sort of used to be, hotel. In that it had like brick walls, I don't know what they call them, those cell block walls. And they were at least separate rooms. We could have separate rooms. There was a place to park vehicles. We could put all the supplies in one place. Not really like roof covering, but that didn't exist very much at this point. There was like limited roof remaining, but we could work with it, right? We could create something here that would work, where people could work. We had a place where we could set up the sat phones. Got it. I go back and tell him, then my job is to go out and film. He's going to move everyone there. At some point during that day, while we were out with Troy, it starts to rain again, which was how the typhoon started before. And Troy stops the vehicle and starts to cry. And we're like, wait, what's wrong? What's wrong? And he said, I'm so sorry, but I'm so worried about my family. And we're like, hang on a second, where is your family? And he said, well, my wife and my kids are, still back at what had been our home. But I wanted to work with you. I need the money. I can pull it together, but I'm just so worried about them. And again, this is an internal compass moment. We're like, wait, we can take care of this. Let's go get them. We will take them back to our compound and they can stay there. Would that be better? And he said, yes. And so we did. And by the way, we had time on our side. We could do this. So why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we take care of our team member and get everyone together, make it safe, make it good? And there was a side benefit of this, which is Mireille was like, hey, I can cook. Well, you guys are out filming and working. I have nothing else that, I am able to do right now. So if you are able to send somebody for supplies, you're able to pay for it, which we could, not me, but somebody else hadn't gotten mugged at the supermarket back in Manila, then I'll cook. And you'll be eating regular meals. Right? Morale for her, morale for us, morale for Troy. It was a solution that was better than what we could have seen on our own, than what we could have imagined. And we were able to go back to work. And that story in Tacloban was awful. There was a great deal of suffering. There was a lot of it that made you really angry, where there was all sorts of international aid at the airport, and we were walking by the same covered bodies for days and days. There were things that made you intensely sad. And we were going home each night to be together and to see the kids running around and happy to see their dad, and Mireille feeding us, having bowls of stew, not just MREs, the meal rations in a bag, and to feel together, right? To literally gather around the fire. That was a gift. And to tease Joey about whether or not we could still hear him snoring. Some claimed they could, those next to him. But eventually, it was time to go. There comes a point where these things start to become like a machine. I was usually a first team in, a first responder. And so I would go in when there was nothing and create something on the ground. And then it starts to become more well-oiled, right? As it goes on, there's choppers are going to come in bringing reinforcements, and we were looking forward to that day. We were dirty. We were gross. We were ready to have a shower. And I still hadn't figured out how I was going to get out of the Philippines and back to Singapore where I was living, but I was ready to find out. And, there's going to be a rhythm, and people are going to come in who are fresh, and there's going to be new supplies. And at that point, I'm thinking, well, this has been great. We've had this wonderful time together, this week that feels like one day and a year, these 10 days, I think actually, 10 or 14 days maybe, but they feel like a short time and a year at the same time. And if you've been through that really intense period together, whether it's in a military deployment or an emergency room or a tech launch, you know what I mean. But we're going to go now. And I got this guilt, right? This sort of like horrible guilt. Well, I know what's going to happen. We're leaving Toy and Mireille and their kids in poverty, right? I know exactly what's going to happen to them. But I was wrong. I don't like saying that very much. But it happens all the time. When you zoom out, we are so often wrong. We can't really see that far ahead. All these years now, those kids who were running around, not really knowing after a few days, like they thought it was fun, right? We're camping, all of us together, learning new things. Those kids have graduated from high school. Troy and Mireille have rebuilt their lives. They're happy. The narrative that you might build in that short term, the perspective that you have, the story you're telling, and the plan you might build as a result is probably going to bear no resemblance to the truth. So many things are going to happen. And some of them are going to be good. Short term and long term. You've got to give that a chance to happen. It is critical.